So I think there are 3 different temperament styles. Those 3 temperament styles often translate into what we see in the eating space, that a child with an easy temperament might very quickly adapt to it and be quite excited about this new food. And a slow to warm child, it might take a few exposures. And a child with a more difficult temperament might really struggle with the idea of this food on their plate. They don't want to try this new thing.
Because I find parents feel really guilty, especially when they follow in social media, and just to understand their child's temperament could just bring them so much more like, oh, okay, that's why my child is not maybe progressing at the speed that others are. In your experience, is there a dynamic between the different temperaments of the parent and the different temperaments of the child?
Anything in parenting, we can't keep ourselves exempt, because I think the more we know about ourselves and what our triggers are and what we might struggle with, the more easily we're able to accommodate those things and be able to engage with our kids.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Baby. I'm Kath Megaw, paediatric dietitian, joined together with my co-host again, Dr. Jenny Rose, who's a clinical psychologist. Always lovely to do it together. And today we are going to follow on from our boundary discussion of last week and just look at the uniqueness of each child, because some parents will say to me, it's easy to set boundaries with my first child, but when my second child came along, it was really hard, and every child is different. So Jenny, talk to us about the beauty of the uniqueness of each of our children, because it really is a beautiful thing. We wouldn't want them all to be the same, but obviously it holds its challenges.
Yeah, absolutely, Kath. I think, what we need to understand in parenting is that every single child is different. And a lot of parents argue, but my approach is the same and I kind of do the same thing, yet there's such a different response. And I think we need to just be factoring in the individual personality of our children and often looking at temperament as well. And these are things that are going to have an impact on how your child engages with the environment in general. It could be with anything. It could be how they respond to social situations, how willing they are to go and explore the world, how adventurous they might be, and certainly does come into play into the eating world as well.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to setting the boundary around food that we mentioned last week, and just to recap, moms and dads, we were saying boundaries is not punishment. Boundaries brings protection. It brings safety, security. You are the parent. You are in charge, because the child is not able, even if they think they are, they're not able to make decisions like that when it comes to what to eat for dinner, what is going to be healthiest for my body, and when is the best time to eat, etc., etc. So that's what we spoke about last week. So now, what are some of the different types of children? We don't want to box children, but what's some of the different types of temperaments that you see and come across in your work and experience?
So I think there are 3 different temperament styles in children, and it's quite easy to actually relate to which one your child is. So the 3 categories are that we have the easy child, and that is typically a child that is just easy in situations, easy across the board. They might be easy in terms of their routine, easy in terms of falling asleep. They transition from one thing to the other quite easily. They engage easily in social situations. The classic example of when you arrive, maybe at a birthday party or at a friend's house, they typically settle quickly and run off and join the group. So that's your easy temperament child. We then have a slow to warm child. And that obviously, as the name says, is a child that first takes a bit of time to suss out a situation, really analyzes it before they are able to actually settle. And those, a lot of parents who have a slow to warm child can also relate easily, because that's your classic child who you arrive at a birthday party or at a braai and they spend the first hour and a half kind of at your ankles or on your lap, and then you have half an hour left, and then the child is absolutely settled, resists leaving because they're having such a good time. They want to stay for longer. So they really take a while to defrost almost and to just transition into a new situation. And then you have a child who might have a difficult temperament, and that is just a child, and we want to really make the distinction that we are not saying the child is difficult, but their temperament is difficult. They struggle when things are unpredictable or when routine changes quickly. They don't have as much of the flexibility maybe as other kids do. They might struggle with certain routines. They struggle in new situations, in times where it calls for them to be adventurous. And so those three temperament styles often translate into what we see in the eating space, where, for example, if we expose our children perhaps to a new food, that a child with an easy temperament might very quickly adapt to it and be quite excited about this new food and eager to try it, eager to taste it, actually wants it on their plate. A slow to warm child, it might take a few exposures and eventually they kind of get there and they might try something out, or they might be a little bit more adventurous after a while, seeing it several times, being exposed to a sibling or a parent eating this kind of food. And a child with a more difficult temperament might really struggle with the idea of this food on their plate. They don't want it to be any different. They don't want to try this new thing. So it's also interesting how these temperament styles actually translate into the eating space.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sure there are parents listening now who can so resonate with their child. And I think it's also really helpful because I find parents feel really guilty, especially when they're following social media and they see the posts on Instagram of children like eating broccoli like, nobody's business, and just eating this amazing plate of food and self-feeding and things like that. And just to understand their child's temperament could just bring them so much more like, oh, okay, that's why my child is not maybe progressing at the speed that others are, because they're just taking a little longer, or maybe my child's a bit more anxious about something new. And so I can imagine that it's hopefully moms and dads that you do just feel a sense of relief just listening to Jenny's explanation here. And Jenny, just out of interest, because I think in podcasts to come, we're definitely going to unpack each of these and give real tips around how to manage that around the eating space, and bring that together. But just, I think as a kind of a last, just to in this particular podcast, each parent would have their own temperament too, I would imagine, because we grow up into, as children, we grow up into adults. In your experience, is there a dynamic between the different temperaments of the parents and the different temperaments of the child in the eating space? I know that's quite a big topic and a big question, but maybe just in a minute or two, which we've got left, would you be able to just give us a little bit of insight into that space? And we can unpack it more in future podcasts.
For sure. I think there's plenty that we could discuss there, but I think like anything in parenting, we can't keep ourselves exempt. We can't box our own personality, our own anxieties, our own upbringing. We can't think and be naive to think that doesn't ever interfere or come into play into the dynamic with our own children. So absolutely, our own temperament, all that we are, we bring with to the eating situation. And, temperament is something that we talk about a lot in the early years. So if you do have your own parents around still, to actually engage with them and have a conversation around what temperament you had as a young child. Because I think the more we know about ourselves and what our triggers are and what we might struggle with, the more easily we're able to accommodate those things and be able to engage with our kids without that interfering. So absolutely, our own temperaments do interfere. And we need to think about, how do I feel about new experiences? And does it overwhelm me? Am I entering the space feeling anxious because I already know bringing something new to my child, what that might induce? And I think to just take this a little bit further, that one of the things I wish we could do more of is just to reassure parents, like you've just said, that the temperament doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It's not something that's caused by who you are as a parent. And to just really reassure parents that, we're so quick to judge ourselves and feel guilty about what we're doing. But actually, it's just about understanding this unique child in front of you and how you can best support them. I had a thing that I read over the weekend somewhere on one social media platform where the conversation started around what are your best healthy meals for children. And so many parents posted amazing things, but, it made me think, what about a mom who's got a very difficult eater reading this, and people are posting, the great experience of pak choy and soy sauce with a side of broccoli, and then there was also, sushi with this, and just very adventurous things that not a lot of children might be eating. And it really made me think, we're so quick to say how our kids might do well in certain things. My kids love to eat broccoli, so that's the one I'm going to put out and showcase to the world. But I think just for parents to understand that so many parents struggle to even get anything green into their child, and to normalize that for parents, and just to take a little bit of the anxiety away, because your temperament mixed with this anxiety and the information we get from the outside world is not a good combination always. And so just really reassuring parents that, this is a process, your child is unique, and we can help set you up for really good, healthy eating behaviors, but we've got to also be realistic.
Oh, I love that. I think that's such a lovely way to end. And moms and dads, you really are good enough parents, which we often say to you. And you are unique. Your child is unique. And we really hope that as you continue to carry on this journey with us, that you will just feel more and more empowered and not overwhelmed with the information that we are providing and giving, and that you're able to go into this eating space with a bit more confidence, a bit less anxiety, and just with a little bit more fun. And until next time, we look forward to seeing you, and take small steps. Be kind to yourself, be kind to your child.